We're going to jump in and get started. As usual, we're running about 5 minutes behind, but thank everybody for being here. It is my pleasure to introduce Marietta Parrish, who is an annual frequent visitor with us. I think she does our January class every year. She's got a cool story, and she has a job that I think all of us would agree is very unique, and is always a pleasure listening to her today. So I'll give her a quick, brief intro. David, we good? Marietta is one of less than 350 board-certified sports nutritionists in the country. She is a board-certified registered dietitian, exercise physiologist, and endurance athlete. Her objectives are to enhance the performance, health, and longevity of individuals that range from the weekend warrior to the professional athlete with focus, food, and fitness. So without further ado, I will introduce Marietta Parrish.
All right, I am thrilled to be here and help you guys start your new year off with wellness. And thank you guys who participated as you signed in with your swaps. We're going to share those towards the end of our time here together. And if some of you didn't have a chance to share yours, you can share them there at the end anyway. Okay, we're going to jump right into sustainable diets and smart food swaps. So first, though, we want to talk about maybe something less sustainable, the best short-term weight loss diets. There's a list of them up there, and they actually look kind of small from here, but these are the most popular or the most successful short-term weight loss diets. So you can see up there ones that provide meal replacements, foods, like that's similar to Jenny Craig, which is listed separately. MetaFast, Atkins diet, keto's on there for short term, Weight Watchers, Biggest Loser diet, Slim Fast, volumetrics, that's where you eat a lot of high fiber foods. Has anyone else been on a short term diet they felt was really successful, that they really liked? Yes?
I did the keto.
You did it? Short term?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. I actually use the keto diet for short term with some of my athletes in the off season. And it's because it burns pure fat. And so if that's their goal, they really don't want to lose muscle, but really want to burn pure fat, it has its place. And it's something that, I use with athletes. Great. Okay. So probably if you've ever gone on a diet, chances are it was a short-term diet. So we're going to talk more, not so what about the short-term diets are, but what's more sustainable today. The best diet overall, when we're looking at, this was U.S. News rankings for 2020, you can see that the Mediterranean and the DASH diet came up. You may be less familiar with the flexitarian diet. That's people that are more plant-based, but sometimes choose to eat meat if they know where it came from or how it was raised or handled. Then they do choose to eat some meat. And then you see, besides health diet, the best for weight loss that was rated was Weight Watchers, or WW, which is now called the vegan diet and the volumetrics diet. All right, so that you have the best healthiest diets rankings and the best for weight loss there. So we want to get into the most sustainable diets. What diet is the most sustainable? And this is where things get really interesting. First, I want to go, just to the next slide and talk about what sustainable means. So when we're looking at a sustainable diet, it may be something you can keep up, you feel like, but you also want to make sure that it's a healthy or balanced diet, that it's going to lead to, of course, the outcomes that you want. And we know that when we're talking about a sustainable diet, it's not just a meal plan or food or menu. It involves usually lifestyle or behavior changes. So we're not just talking about eating certain foods on a list or not eating certain foods on the list. We're talking about behavior and lifestyle as well. So I don't know if I can go backwards. Okay, well, the previous slide was showing about which diet's most sustainable, and here's what research is going to tell you. And this is something surprising when I have people come and talk to me about different diets and what they should follow, is the answer is going to be different for every person. So we're going to walk through some of the more popular diets and what they entail. And there may be one diet, as we go through some of the popular ones, that is a better fit for you, but may not be something sustainable for somebody else. And some of them that you may think are not healthy may in fact be okay. So we're going to learn about them, but at the end of the day, when we say, hey, what's sustainable or what's the best diet for you to be on, that's highly individualized. So there's no one diet plan that's best for everyone to follow. It may be that some of you can do a Whole30. It may be that some of you can do WW the rest of your life, and that works for you and it's healthy. So as we look through some of these popular diets, we're going to talk about some pros and cons and if there's any of them that may fall out of the sustainable category and why. But I think you'll find that a lot of them actually can be considered a sustainable diet because they may fit something that's healthy, that you can continue to do, and something that involves lifestyle or behaviors and habits. So let's dive into some of these diets. The first one, Mediterranean, you saw this one was linked for being one of the, you saw the 2020 rankings for one of the healthiest diets. You hear this talked about a lot. My dad's a physician and he loves to throw it out there. Well, Mediterranean, that's the way I eat, and I'm like, do you even know what that means? So this diet came around in the 1960s, and this is where they realized that people from a lot of the Mediterranean countries, particularly Greece and Italy, had lower rates of cardiovascular related incidents, all right? So they had better heart health. And they started to look more closely to see why that was, and they felt like it was linked to what they ate, their physical activity, no surprise, and there are also relationships, that they had more family meals and were more connected, and that more so than we are here, at least in the West, or what we considered westernized diet. So with the Mediterranean diet, they identified several general concepts from the diet. So when we talk about the Mediterranean diet, it's not a diet that has like follow these 3 steps or eat these certain foods, in particular. It does have general guidelines. You need to eat more fish. You can have some red wine, but it needs to be, very limited. Avoid red meat if possible. Avoid sugar or processed foods if possible. Do a lot of healthy fats and plant-based diet. So there's a lot of general concepts, and if you hear that, hopefully you're going, yeah, that's what our government here in our country says we need to do too. Well, it is. But a lot of the concepts that we've promoted over the past several decades have actually stemmed back from this research that came from the 60s, and I guess could be, say, based on the Mediterranean diet. So it is general, therefore I guess it makes it easy to follow, but maybe hard to follow for some, because it is a little bit vague. Any questions about the Mediterranean diet? Okay, the DASH diet. This one is a little bit more specific. It's been around for a while, and it was developed originally to treat hypertension, and it focuses on limiting sodium. Anytime you do that, you're going to automatically limit your amount of processed foods that you get in your diet. So the average American gets about 3,500 milligrams of sodium per day, and this diet's going to really limit you to somewhere either 1,500 or 2,300 milligrams, depending on how your blood pressure is running. It still is very plant-based, but you do get to include red meat and some fats and sweets on this, and that's something that's more limited, say, on the Mediterranean diet compared to this one. So it also has an emphasis on including foods that are higher in calcium or potassium or magnesium, so more fruits and vegetables, emphasis on including dairy. That's something different maybe compared to other diets. Has anyone ever tried to follow the DASH diet? Okay, it's not a very sexy one, but it is effective. And it does help most people lose weight. It can, in as little as 2 weeks, lower your blood pressure for most people in 2 weeks just from following it. And it does also, has been, research has shown, to help improve your bad cholesterol or your LDL cholesterol. So it is a very healthful diet. Low carb diets, this can be a host of different diet plans that cut your carbohydrates down between 20 and 150 grams of carbohydrate per day. If anyone's counted carbs, that may mean something to you. If you've never counted carbs and you're going, what's 20 to 150 grams a day? Well, if you eat a whole banana, you're getting more than 20 grams of carb, if that puts it in a good frame for you. And 150 grams of carb a day. Well, if you have a bowl of cereal with fruit and a fruited yogurt cup with it, you're getting close to 150 grams. It adds up pretty quickly, so that's not very much carbohydrate. So research has shown that low-carb diets do have some health outcomes, and they may be something that you can follow long-term, certainly, and you're going to have improved blood sugars, you're going to have improved cholesterol, improved blood pressure for most people. And this certainly, so it's not cutting out any food groups, it's not eliminating certain foods, it's just decreasing a certain macronutrient content. The cons to this would be perhaps for some of us, you may limit energy levels, or you may have less if you have certain performance aspirations. It may not be beneficial or to follow a low-carb diet, but that's about the main drawback from following a low-carb diet would be energy and any kind of performance goals that you have. Otherwise, it's a diet that you can certainly follow long-term that has proven positive health outcomes for you, and it's easier, I guess, to follow than others, but once again, it's a little bit more general, and some people don't do well on a more general diet. They like higher structure. Atkins, it's probably the most popular, not probably, it is the most popular low-carb diet. And most of us are familiar with, we're at our age, we were around when the creator of Atkins diet was around and helped grow the popularity of this. And now they have their own foods and snacks product lines that they've come out with. You've seen on TV, if you've seen the commercial, they have Rob Lowe trying to, really be their spokesperson and bring it to the forefront. And a lot of people still really follow this. So it's a diet that has different phases. It starts out very low carb, so you see usually an initial big shedding of weight, and a lot of that is water loss for different reasons. And then it slows down as you add more carbs back in. It does show positive health outcomes. So I know a lot of people look at this diet, the Atkins diet, and in a minute here we're going to get to keto diet, and you look at some of the things that you eat and you think, how can that be healthy? But research shows long-term for Atkins diet, for most people, it does appear beneficial for improving blood sugar, cholesterol, including triglycerides, and for blood pressure. So even though it may seem that people are maybe eating some foods that a lot of other diets, like the Mediterranean diet, which is one of the healthiest diets, kind of poo-poos on, that you still can have positive health outcomes following the Atkins diet. Let's go to the ketogenic diet. This is one that was, I feel like we should award Diet Trend of the Year for maybe 2018. It was kind of on its way out this past year in 2019, and now it's out. So if you're trying to be trendy, don't follow keto now in 2020, now that we're in a new year. It's so 2019, okay? But keto got really popular there for a while, and a lot of people are still just getting into it. And it's not a new diet. It's been around forever, and it's like anything in fashion as well, where it kind of comes in style and out of style and comes back in style. Well, keto's the same way. So it's back in style for a minute. And a lot of people are attracted to it because they don't feel deprived. They feel like they can indulge in a lot of the foods that they like, fatty foods, and that makes them happier. They feel that's easier. That would not be me. The keto diet, I feel, is very difficult to follow. And most of my clients that have tried to follow it long term have really struggled to. It took a lot of planning and prep on their part, especially if they traveled, to find meals that were appropriate. And now it's easier. They make so many processed foods that are keto friendly, but they found themselves turning to that. And I had to really question, How healthy is that if you're eating a lot more processed foods to stay on this ketogenic diet? We don't have long-term studies on this. So we can definitely show a lot of short-term benefits, but we don't have long-term studies for health outcomes. On short-term basis, we do see some positive outcomes from the ketogenic diet, but long-term, we can't say. We suspect that it's not healthy long-term, but we cannot say that. So this is one that's questionable. So I would not consider it a sustainable diet yet. One of the major challenges from individuals I've worked with trying to follow the ketogenic diet is staying in ketosis. Most of them had to resort to not just the urine test strips, but the blood ones. And they had to test their blood every morning to see exactly where their ketone levels were. And a lot of them, it meant limiting their carbs to only 20 or 30 grams a day, which, as I mentioned earlier, is like a banana. That's not very much. So a lot of people find it very difficult to follow the diet, especially if they have a hectic lifestyle and can't plan and prepare all their meals. They found it very difficult to keep themselves in ketosis. And if you come out of ketosis, all you're doing is eating fat. And guess what happens when you eat fat? Your body stores it as fat. That's the way it goes. You can use your protein in your body for repair. You have a constant turnover of protein every day. Carbohydrates, your body can store 3,000 grams worth of carbohydrate, or calories worth, I should say, of carbohydrate in your body for potential use if you're going to exercise or need it. But fat, if you eat fat, it goes to fat in your body. All right. So if you're not burning that fat, if you're not in true ketosis, all you're doing is raising your body fat considerably. So that can be a real challenge. Again, a lot of people are attracted to this diet because they find it, for some people, easier to follow because they feel less deprived. And that's something you have to consider on any diet plan is, am I going to feel satisfied by eating this way? If you're feeling constantly deprived, it's not sustainable. So that is something to consider. Any questions about keto diet? All right, let's talk about paleo. Paleo diet got a huge boost when CrossFit began getting really popular. And CrossFit's kind of switched to keto, and now CrossFit's doing vegan. And CrossFit trend has not died out, which is amazing. So they still are driving a lot of nutrition trends in our country. And again, they kind of drove paleo initially, and a lot of people still follow it. I would say a lot of people who maybe joined in initially on the paleo diet trend have found it to be sustainable for their lifestyle. And I actually do find a lot of people that follow it. It's certainly not the easiest diet to follow. It does require a lot of food planning and prep, and it does exclude a lot of food groups, and that can be potentially unhealthy for many people. Long-term studies do show that it does improve risk factors for heart disease, at least the few studies that we have that are long-term. But you do have to be aware because it's cutting out such major food groups. And you're going to see this with several of the diets we're about to talk about, particularly that exclude dairy, is it can be really difficult to get the amount of calcium that you need. Most people don't get enough calcium anyway. And so it's further difficult when you're following these diets. You do get calcium from other foods. You don't always absorb it, and you have to eat a whole lot. So, for instance, if you're going to get a cup of milk, you're going to get about 300 milligrams of calcium. To put that in proper range, most of us in here as adults need about 1,000 milligrams of calcium a day, and that's where you get 3 servings of dairy, low-fat dairy a day advice. So a cup of milk's about 1/3 of the way there. If you were to get, that much calcium from broccoli, you'd have to eat 5 cups of broccoli. Or leafy greens, 12 cups. It's considerably more, as an example, of how much you have to get. And then it's a different type of calcium, and it's harder to absorb. So that is something to consider on some of these diets, especially if you have compromised bone health or a family history of osteoporosis. It may be something you want to take in consideration. A lot of these high meat diets are low on calcium, and they are harder on the bones. Okay, Whole30. This is a popular diet. It still is gaining popularity. I saw an interview recently with Melissa Hartwig, one of the founders, and she was coming out with new stuff, keeping it fresh, especially for this new year. And has anyone tried to do Whole30? Okay, nobody has. It's a lot of planning and prep. So it may, that's the main thing I hear about this diet. Once again, it does eliminate dairy and a host of other foods. So short term, it does have some immediate benefits. Long term, we don't know. Let's move into the vegan diet. This is the diet trend of the year for 2020, is a vegan diet. We're having a lot of movies like Game Changers that have drawn attention to the vegan diet, and a lot of people are moving towards it. This is exciting. They may not have used all the tactics and solid research that I agree with in that movie, but I like that it's getting people interested in more of a plant-based diet. It doesn't mean that everyone I talk to is going vegan as a result, but I do see more people saying, hey, I need to eat more plants, maybe consider some meals without meat, or at least realize I don't need near as much meat as I have been eating, and that includes chicken or fish. The vegan diet, unless you do it just perfectly, most people are going to need some supplements on it. It's going to fall short in several key nutrients unless you really do it perfectly. So that's something to consider. Is it a healthier diet? It may not be for a lot of people. They're going to be required to supplement on it. Intermittent fasting. This is something that still is growing in popularity. We are doing more and more research on this because it seems like there are more pros than cons to following this type of eating. It doesn't eliminate certain foods. It doesn't say you have to eat certain foods. Of course, it's encouraged with intermittent fasting that you eat healthy food when your hours to eat are, and you can do all different types of intermittent fasting. Of course, the most popular is to fast for 16 hours and then have your eating window be 8 hours, but there's all sorts. There's 24-hour fast, and some people do that 5-2. They fast for 24 hours 2 days a week, and then they eat normal the other 5 days. There's all different types of intermittent fasting the way you do it, but a lot of people have found that it's just easier to control their calorie levels when they do intermittent fasting, and they adopt this as a lifestyle. So it's certainly something that's sustainable. We're seeing that it does help a lot of people lose weight, and long-term studies look like it helps them keep it off. And we also are seeing that as a result, it has favorable health outcomes. So this is certainly something that may work for you. And again, there's not a lot of downfall from trying it. It doesn't cost a lot of money. There's not a lot of hard rules. It's pretty simple. So it may be worth a try. Biggest downfall from people that I talk to that follow it is they find difficulty with social obligations, trying to figure out their fasting windows if that fasting time falls when they're supposed to go out with friends or family or an event. They're like, this is really awkward, and that's the main thing I hear from folks. Noom. This is becoming something, if you haven't heard about it, is becoming more popular. This really pulls in technology. And Noom, as it grows, becomes a more comprehensive program. I love their mission statement. That's exactly what I think all of us seek to do. And so I love that they're all about helping people with their lifestyle by making small changes. So that's their attempt, is to offer a comprehensive program that addresses lifestyle, that addresses the food you eat, the portions that you choose, and gives you high accountability, whether it's putting you in a peer group where you can find accountability or just your individual coach. It is something you have to pay for every month, but it does appear to be a really well-balanced, very sustainable program that you can follow if you want to keep paying for it, if that's sustainable for you. WW, as you know, Oprah stepped in and tried to really help revive Weight Watchers. It's been around for a long time, as you can see, since the 60s, and it remains one of the most popular diets worldwide. It's popular worldwide because it's successful. Weight Watchers, again, offers balance and variety and moderation. So it's teaching people to work with their portions that are appropriate for them, puts an emphasis on physical activity and healthy food choices. I think its strength is the accountability. It gives people structure and accountability, and that's usually what people require. Their goal is to help people learn to eat in a way that they can continue the rest of their life. So their whole program is founded on the fact that this is something we want you to do the rest of your life, and they've done it very well. So the best diet for you may not be what's best for somebody else, and there may be diets that appear bad, but surprisingly, long-term they have great outcomes. Ultimately, if they're helping you keep your body fat down and your weight down, you're going to have better health outcomes. That's the bottom line. So keep in mind that when you are choosing a diet, you do have to think about your family, and that's why this boy's in the picture. If you do have family, whether it's a spouse or children or people around you, what you eat is going to be apparent to them and may have an impact on them. So that needs to be part of what you consider when you're looking at what's sustainable. Now, we're going to get, we have about 5 minutes here before we wrap up, and we want to get into food swaps. Thank you guys that shared yours. Some of these, I'm going to be honest, as a dietitian, I hear a lot of them go, oh, swap, just instead of eating chips, eat veggies. I'm like, yeah, that sounds like something a dietitian would say. Or my favorite that I hear my students say is, try eating fruit instead of dessert. And I'm like, really? That doesn't work for most people. That's an obvious, absolutely, it's a better idea to eat veggies for chips, especially if you're going to meet your goal for vegetables. It's a better idea to eat fruit than dessert. And if that's something that works for you, that's the ideal. But I know that's certainly not an easy swap for a lot of people. Debbie, I saw you gave this one yogurt for salad dressing. Do you just do yogurt on your salad?
Like on sandwiches?
Spread it instead of, that's great. Yeah, that's really good. And that's one of the food swaps we're going to see is using yogurt instead of sour cream. You can mix your own herbs right into that. So here's one in case you have not got on the seltzer water craze and you're still drinking diet sodas. I encourage you to try seltzer water. They have all different flavors. I find a lot of people maybe have tried seltzer water and at first they're kind of like, that's not sweet at all. They're expecting it to have artificial sweetener. It doesn't. It doesn't have any sweetener added to it, so it's not sweet. Another drawback I hear is some people don't like all the fruit flavors, especially if they've been a soda drinker. Kroger makes a cola, a root beer, and a Dr. Pepper flavor water. Again, they just have flavor adding to them. They don't have any sweetener of any type, real or artificial, and they're just carbonated water, and there's nothing unhealthy about carbonated water or carbonation. It's completely fine. It's not going to impact you or your performance goals. It's absolutely okay. So I would encourage you to try this if you're still struggling with getting off the sugar-sweetened Cokes or products. Avocado for mayo. This is a really fun one, whether it's tuna salad or if it's on your sandwich. Just doing a smashed avocado is really going to increase your fiber. It's going to increase your healthy fats that you need. And it's obviously not processed, so it's a win-win-win all the way around if you use avocado in place of mayo. And again, it's not going to work on every recipe, but you're going to be surprised it actually tastes really good because it has that same mouthfeel as mayo in a lot of recipes. An open-faced sandwich instead of double bread. This may be an easy change that you can make this year. I do this with my kids. They've never known a double bread sandwich, and when I pack it, like for a picnic, I put double bread on and they complain, and I'm thrilled because I want them to think sandwiches are all open-faced. This is a great way just to put your meal in better balance. And to hopefully include more vegetables if you're topping them on your sandwich. That's an easy thing that you can do for your health. Fresh fruit instead of dried. Dried fruit often has added sugars to it, and it's very high in calories, and you can eat a lot more fresh fruit and fill up. And it's actually more affordable to eat fresh fruit than dried. So that's a good switch. This gets to the one, like Debbie's mentioning, using Greek yogurt instead of sour cream. If you use the plain Greek yogurt. You can use it in anything. You use it on potatoes. You may think like that's weird, but actually it's fantastic. And you can also get, like I said, the seasoning blends and just mix it in there. And you'd be surprised that's how you don't miss sour cream if you do it. Spraying oil versus pouring. This is one that especially if you're watching calories and you're trying to make it easier on yourself to watch your weight, then get in the habit of spraying your oil. You can buy a mister where you can put oil in there, or I put mine in like a condiment bottle, it looks like a ketchup one, and it makes far less oil come out. But you get just over 100 calories from pouring a little bit of oil in your pan, and you'd probably be fine if you sprayed the oil on and you'd use a fraction of the amount. So that's a small change you can make that's going to be healthier for you, for some people, most people. Getting regular noodles versus veggie noodles, somebody did mention that, and they said spaghetti squash, which I love. You can get all types of noodles. I think for a lot of people, if you've never tried this swap, if you're like, I don't know about that, for one, you can buy them anywhere, frozen especially, which makes it easy if you don't want to make your own. But the key is to not overcook the veggie noodles. If you cook them too much, they're going to be squishy. So you need them almost raw to really give them to help them stand up and to be a good mouthfeel. Or the other thing you can really think about is, hey, let me try doing half my amount of noodles and mixing in some of these veggie noodles with it. And that's really a win. You probably will be happy with it and not notice it. So maybe try that route versus switching all your noodles out. But that would certainly be a healthy swap. Red sauce versus white. This is something as a constant battle with my athletes that love Alfredo. Usually what I do, because I can't get them to give it up, is we have the chef make it low fat with no cream, and so they don't know. As long as it tastes good and it's white, that's what matters to them. But by choosing red sauce, you're choosing many more nutrients, lycopene in particular, getting that tomato-based sauce over white. So that's a good, easy swap that you can get in the habit of. Have any of you tried the Bolthouse Farms dressings? Yeah, they're great. I mean, I'm seeing most people shake their heads. They're wonderful, and they're considerably less calories. I put the info up there for you just to see. Ranch, I think, has gotten a bad name, but you can make ranch fresh, but if you're not going to take time to do that, well, you can get Bolthouse Farms. It's a refrigerated dressing, and there's other brands similar to it, but it's made from very healthful ingredients, nothing artificial, and it's a good, huge calorie saver, and especially added fat saver. Okay, cocktails versus wine. So if you're really looking for health and what you can do to be healthier, if you can say, I'm just going to have my glass of red wine instead of a cocktail, you're going to cut your calories. Most cocktails, you're going to cut your calories by 2/3 if you just have the glass of wine. Plus, the wine's going to have more benefits than most of the cocktails. So it depends what you're going for there, but most of us would be a little healthier if we choose the glass of wine over the cocktail. Okay, any other swaps that you guys want to offer in that you have found really helpful for yourself? And thank you guys that did offer some. Okay, it kind of depends on what you're going for when you're looking for swaps. But this is where I love, we're just talking with your neighbors where they can say, hey, I tried this, it was great. You never know what's going to work for one person versus another. So that's good to be open to trying new things and great information you get from your neighbor. There's nothing wrong or right about them saying, hey, I tried this instead of this. So it's okay to follow whatever they say and be adventurous. So yes. Yeah, that's a popular one. And there's so many options to get the cauliflowered rice. That's another one like the noodles that I mentioned. If you've never tried the riced cauliflower, you may not want to jump right in and say, I'm going to eat all rice cauliflower instead of rice. That you may have a negative experience because you may be expecting the texture to be exactly the same, and it's not. But you can do half and half. You can say, I'm going to mix half this rice cauliflower in with my regular rice, and again, don't make your rice cauliflower mush. But that can be really great. You have to be aware, though, with all trends when you get into cauliflower, it's been so trendy that now you're seeing everything made out of it. And as a result, there's a lot of highly processed foods that have a lot of starches and preservatives added to bind it together. So do be aware of that when you're looking at different foods. But you can buy frozen riced cauliflower, and it's fantastic for mixing into anything. I mix it into stuff all the time. It's just so healthy for you, and a lot of people don't want to eat just plain cauliflower. It's not appetizing, but when you mix it into anything, it's great. I mixed it into my stuffing at Thanksgiving, and everybody ate a ton of it. I mix it in regularly. I love to stuff squash, winter squash, and so I always put rice cauliflower in that. But I mix it into everything. You don't notice it, and it's packed with nutrients. So that's a great recommendation for that.
What about almond milk versus pasteurized cow's milk?
Yeah, and somebody said coconut milk up here too. So coconut milk or almond milk, or there's a lot of different milks. There's oat milk. There's any kind of milk made from things these days. And they are not necessarily healthier than cow's milk. Again, dairy's gotten a really negative name, and there's so many mixed messages saying, well, who's paying for that message? Who's behind saying dairy's good? But the bottom line is there's a lot of research showing very positive outcomes from adequate calcium in our diet, and potassium, which is also in milk. And that can't be true, cannot be said, I should say, of all the substitute milks. The substitute milks do offer benefits, particularly soy milk, because it has isoflavonoids in it, which help protect us against diseases and help us be healthier. Almond milk, its main benefit is that it's fortified and can be tasty. So they add calcium and vitamin D to almond milk. So for some people that are choosing to use it, they're getting more calcium and vitamin D than if they weren't using it. So that can be a real boon. But all of the substitute milks are processed foods, just like anything else, and they don't offer any benefit above cow's milk. So that's the true answer, something to keep in mind. But they're tasty, and so if you want to include it, it's great. They're low calorie, so if you're using it just instead of water, that might be a benefit over water per se. But there's not a lot of benefit otherwise to using those. Again, if you're going to use a substitute milk, I would encourage you to go for soy. It does have great benefits. But the others, there's nothing wrong with them, but they don't have the benefits of cow's milk or soy milk. But that's a good question. Any others?
For snacks, like I eat the raw almonds instead of cookies.
Yeah. I mean, please, y'all eat a handful of healthy nuts instead of cookies. That's ideal, again. So that's, again, something that works for you. And you know what? It may work for a lot of other people. Again, keep an open mind. And one reason why is it has fat in it, and the cookies have fat. So you may indeed eat the nuts and feel satisfied. You might be surprised because it had fat in it. And fat can be very satiating. Mentally, it may not work for some people, though, but it's worth a try, for sure. Any other swaps?
I don't have a swap, but what do you suggest for coffee creamer?
That's a tough one.
Favorite one, a substitute?
One of the more fun substitutes is Vital Proteins has a coffee creamer line, and they're made from collagen peptides, and it's a pretty good product. So, and because it has the protein in it, it gives it that thick, creamy, if you will, taste. So it'd be worth a try. It's certainly not cheap. But it would have some added benefits, and that would be the most positive. Above that, again, you get into the natural bliss or the almonds and it's like, well, they're all processed foods. And you can get into the plain, they don't have any added sweetener. Yeah, that's going to be more beneficial, but then you're like, it's not really coffee creamer. So that's a super tough one for a lot of people. Because there is nothing that's really even. The Vital Proteins is the best alternative, their coffee creamer line, that I've seen. Otherwise, most people, what they do is they just acquire a taste. Right?
I don't know if I can do that.
Yeah. Well, so creamer fits in, though, if you want to have creamer or something like that, because we all get to things in our diet that we say, I don't want to give that up. And it's something that's maybe highly processed or something that you're like, I know that's terrible. that's fine. We all get 10% of our total daily of our total calories every day to use towards, or I call them discretionary calories, but they go towards added sugars or added fats or whatever fun stuff. So it can go towards creamer. So if you're like, yeah, I really dessert, that's really my treat, then it may just fit in. So just watch how much you use, then you'd get about 100 calories worth of creamer, and that's pretty good. And so then it's like, I'm going to have this and not feel bad about it. It fits right in. But you've made a decision to, limit the other stuff. And that's okay. So nothing wrong. And people shouldn't make you feel bad if you're fitting it in appropriately. So that's good. Any other questions?
I got a question about that, the diet, the 16-hour fasting.
Yes.
Is there an energy problem with that? Because if you're pretty active, it seems like that's quite a while, or not.
It kind of depends on where you place it, whether you're going to have more issues with it or not, and your exercise. But most everyone I talk to, I would say everyone I've ever worked with that's followed the diet has not had a problem.
Where do they place it in the day?
Their exercise?
No, the whole diet. Like,
Oh, most commonly it's from 11 to 7 is their eating window. So they don't eat after 7. Yeah, it doesn't seem that big of a deal. So a lot of people are just skipping in the morning. Interestingly enough, on the fasting diet, and it has a name, another popular one only for men is, what do they call it, the warrior diet? But it's where they don't eat all day and they just eat dinner. And I'm like, they have a name for this? I mean, I would say a large percentage of men I work with follow that diet anyway, So it is kind of interesting. And the interesting thing is, as intermittent fasting's become more in the spotlight and they've done more research on it, they found that men respond better to the fasting diets than women. That women don't do as well, particularly on the long fasting, but men do great. So that is kind of a difference, and it may be that if there's a guy in here, you might be more likely to do well on one of the fasting type diets than the females.
And I think with the intermittent fasting craze, you can still have your coffee in the morning.
Black coffee and water fits right in.
Yeah, black.
Well, that seems to check the social box too, that 11 to 7.
You can just sip coffee. Oh, it does for
Yeah, you
social.
go to
Yeah,
dinner and
it does here, not in New York. I have clients in New York that are like, I cannot go to dinner.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
Get the early bird special.
Yeah, and one thing working like with the Predators, I was in Milwaukee early last week working with the guys, our feeder team there, our farm team, and one of the guys asked me, he's real into intermittent fasting, not during the season, but he had heard of dry fasting, and that was the first I heard of it. It's a bad idea. So dry fasting is fasting without any fluids, and I was like, please don't let this become a thing, but if you hear about it, it's a bad idea. Okay, don't do it. So, all right, we have used our time. I am going to stay here for questions, though, if you guys have any. Thank you so much for coming today, and hopefully you have a better idea about what type of diet you should adopt long term. Thank you, guys.